прес-конференції на просить з секунди на секунду. Давай після запитання.
The 26th of January. My name is Svetlana Chaprenko, reporting from Ukrainian Media Center. We are presenting a book called Kharkiv, the city 100 times crucified, photo evidence by a photographer. Kharkiv city-born Mr. Belikov has published a book 400 pages long where he has photographed the missile launches from the Belgorod region in Russia, and he also records the anxieties, feelings of the civilian population, the students of the secondary schools and other layers. Mr. Shevchenko is the Deputy Minister of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine for European integration. Alla Maliyenko is the head of the Auditing Commission at the National Union of Journalists. Maksym Udovychenko, head of the Center for the Protection of the Information Space of Ukraine. Dobronosov is a Ukrainian photojournalist. Sir, why is it important that such books are published for the Ukrainian public and the international audience? How do such books help to record the war crimes? You see, in the second part of your question, you have provided an answer already. It is a very important area of documenting and information, very important for the ministry to make a record of the war crimes by the Russian Federation in terms of the information and information security, something that we are responsible for. This is one of the components of our activities. Private publications do a lot, but the government, although it has a restricted amount of funding, but we are trying to help such projects and such books, one of which will be covered today. Last year, the ministry held an artistic bidding process. Within the framework of that competition, we have singled out the priorities, and this particular area, of course, is something of a highest priority. We are very much interested to record the photo witnesses. This is a very specific way to make a record of what has been going on in Ukraine. The Artistic Commission has selected the best projects, and now we are seeing the presentation of what I think is the best, one of the best examples of the project that the government has been supporting. A city of Kharkiv 100 times crucified. I think this is a very special city. Perhaps it makes us revisit the history, the narrative, the identity of the city that is sitting next door to the Russian border, one of the cities that had seen the attack and repelled very successfully the initial attack by the Russians, people who thought that they were marching along the downtown square, the city that has been shelled almost every day. But the city that is living continues to be a Ukrainian city. And personally, I would like to recollect a story of my friend. They are living in the city of Kharkiv, and I was asking her whether it was too dangerous. She's working online for a company in Kiev, but her response was that if we leave the city, who will stay here? People must be here, young people must be living here, the life must be here. So the citizens and dwellers of Kharkiv are patriots of this country, and hopefully this book will be an encouragement for them, and a useful one, and an important too. Mr. Udovychenko, on your take, why do you think this book is very special? Why does it occupy a special place amongst those that you have selected for the bidding process? How does it tell a story of an unbreakable city. Why is it that the Russian Federation has failed to terrify city? This city as a direct witness of the defense of the Ukrainian city. Unfortunately, the author cannot be here. He has to take care of his 85-year-old mother. He is perhaps more known abroad rather than abroad, but we will make sure that this has been rectified. Part of the photographs has been taken on board by the AP. The exhibition in Poland has also presented them. When you look at these photographs, you realize on one side how beautiful the city is. On the other hand, you understand that this beauty hides the vandalized places, the death itself. It is very important that such books be published here in Ukraine for the coming generations, for them to understand what we have lived through and what the enemy has been. Alla, Maliyenko, what do you think primarily this book is? An artistic work, a reportage, a reporting work? I know that the Union of Journalists has chosen this book to be supported. Welcome, everybody. You have told the audience that I am the head of the auditing commission. There's something frightening. You see, we have in the audience the head of the Union of Journalists. I am his deputy. For many years, our colleagues share their reminiscences with us. This is a witness of our time. This is why every book of this sort is a confession. People are risking their lives. The head of the Journalist Union and myself, we were discussing the poem by Ticina called Both Block and Belly, where the poem reads, "My Kiev has been crucified 100 times. Now my question is, who stands behind those crucifixions?" This is one of the answers. We are living through a tragedy. This is a woe. I hope that we will live through this trauma. We will be successful in overcoming these consequences and misfortune. You mentioned that the author of the book, it is indeed good that he goes around the world to share with the world audience the disaster that we have seen. This is an important book. I wish this book were not dedicated to such misfortunes and mishaps. As a colleague of our author, how do you think important this book is, and what is your assessment of his oeuvre? We have heard so far a couple of times that Mr. Belikov is known more abroad rather than in Ukraine. Perhaps it's worth thinking about publishing it in English. Mr. Belikov and I were working on the same television channel. He and I shared quite a difference. He was and is the person who was interviewing people. He was doing very dedicated reporting. You have seen that his book is full of patience, full of light. I have seen the book for the first time 30 minutes ago before this press conference commenced. It shows how patient he has been. This is what I have noticed. My colleague said that he is going throughout the world. It's a strange thing that he doesn't travel. It is his books that roam around the world. It's important that he personally, he is here in Ukraine with his old mother, but his books go throughout the world. Next point is it's important to remember what is the essence of the city of Kharkiv. Yes, it is a city that is constantly bombed and shelled, When I looked this morning at the bird's eye view of the city on the map, and I zoomed it out, and I saw that, you see, next door to Kharkiv is next to the Russian border. It's a real administrative border of the Russian Federation. It's important to know that. As for the informational support of such books, not only is it important, it must be weaponized. You see, sometimes people tell me that we journalists seem to bend the truth. I think, yes, indeed, information can be bent. Why? Because the enemy is doing that constantly. They have been weaponized it. It's an example would be the machine gun with such a speed that they churn out pieces of disinformation. I always compare that with a football reportage. Of course, the commentator can be biased. For one thing is when the commentator is bad, or the other thing is when the Ukrainian team play another team, and then it is understandable that we are biased, rooting for our team. Now we think about the people in harm's way. The soldiers are sitting in the ditches, and they hope that somebody will write a book that, yes, will be biased towards Ukrainian cause. You see, we don't have to be biased. The enemy is doing everything it takes. What we must do is to highlight the truth. This is when I was moving from the Donetsk region to Kharkiv region back in 2017. My short story is when I found myself in the subway station in the Donetsk region. All the loudspeakers on the public transportation, they all have been stolen. There are no announcements. What I heard was next station, the tractor making factory in the Russian language, and something within me just ached. The next station was the Marshal Zhukov station, then the Soviet Square. It's all about information support. We are lacking it. These stories are testifying to the fact that Mr. Belikov's case is very important. I don't know how his book got selected. I did not participate in such a competition. When I saw the book, I remember people writing to me that we've been leafing through this book, through your Instagram. It's just like I was leafing through this book. Were it not that I have been called to talk, I would have been doing that until now. It's a classy book. It's professionally done. Mr. Belikov is himself a director, and he is a war reporter. If you want to know something about this war, might I advise you that you take a look at this book. This is an exciting piece of work. That's all I have to say. Thank you for such a beautiful answer. Let us feed the questions from the floor. The floor is given to those of the journalists. What was the process? The previous book, the journalist in harm's way, something that you have been working on. What does it feel like to work on such wartime books? The book was done at a one go. This is a book, I should tell you, as a professional. And I've been working in this field for more than 3 decades. The snapshots, there might be some questions to it, but the photos themselves is a view through the lenses of the camera on the circumstances on the events that this country has been seeing. I am very grateful to the publisher, grateful to the Institute of Books and the Union of Journalists of Ukraine for this opportunity to work with such books. They're inspiring a new lease of life into the Ukrainian book market, into the Ukrainian books. Thank you, sir. Do we have more questions to our panelists? Welcome, everybody. My question is to Mr. Shevchenko. Does your ministry plan to continue these bidding processes? Such books are very important for the public and, of course, for the society and for the coming generations. Will there be next competitions? Indeed, we plan such bidding process in the framework of securing information space of Ukraine. The financial year marks the approval of such process, so it'll take some time, but the program includes the competition for such books. Over the 3 years that I have been working at the ministry, such competition was held annually. Thank you. Do we have more questions? If I may ask another question. Mr. Udovychenko, how do you distribute the book and how can we get hold of it? On the one hand, we are working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. These books are distributed amongst the Ukrainian embassies around the world. On the other hand, different charity foundations and non-governmental organizations write requests, and after that, the ministry will distribute these books through our efforts. We are also distributing these books among military hospitals and the military units. That is to say, a lot of people will get hold of these books. So you should address my colleague and we will get it distributed to you. I would also add that ministry is also playing its part in the process. Well, actually, most books are distributed amongst the military. In the first place, those who are at the front line. You see, the numbers that we have published are not that much, but it's distributed free of charge because the taxpayer has already paid for these books. These books are distributed free of charge. Alexander Makaryev, from the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy. I'm quite emotional when I think about this book. What does Kharkiv mean to everybody? To me personally, it means my student years, the green gardens, the best, I think, monument to Taras Shevchenko in the world, the biggest square, a lot of places that are still there in our memories. What are we having now? We have shattered and ruined buildings. The worst thing is that our children know what it feels like, what the shelling is. For them, the Kharkiv underground system is not a way of commuting, but a place of safety. This is an important book, and I am grateful to everybody who has participated and invested into this book. We will prevail, and historically speaking, this will be a witness of our life. Thank you. Do we have more questions? Libraries, will they be getting those books? Do we have to write to the ministry to get hold of the book? Not necessarily. The ministry works, as far as the books are concerned, works through the Institute of Books. It is their program that are targeting the library fundings because we don't have this overlap. Unfortunately, these books will not go to the libraries directly. You see, if we think about the number of libraries throughout Ukraine, it'll be not enough. We have about 13,000 libraries, and the copies that we have published is 1,000. So you will have to operate through the books, Institute of Books. There is a law that prescribes how many books should go to the key libraries, and of course every publisher lives up to that commitment. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank the panelists. Let me remind you, we've been talking about a city 100 times crucified, Kharkiv, in 2022 and 2023. We will continue our work at midday. We'll be talking about the thoughts and the take of the Ukrainian public on the e-services. Stay tuned.